hosting the session. We are thankful to Indian Orthopedic Association for giving us this opportunity to plan the program and at the same time host the program. Now, the most important question, why such webinar and why we really need to learn a communication skill? Whether we are in a small setup hospital of our own hospital, or we are in a teaching institute or in a corporate hospital working in a group practice, either we are a leader or we are a team member. And we need to communicate with our colleagues very regularly. And at that point, we really face a lot of challenge. And so in this webinar, we are going to discuss 4 powerful or important tools of communication. The first one is, we are going to discuss how to handle the difference of opinion. Naturally, when there are more than one person, there are going to be difference of opinion. And how we tackle, how we handle those difference of opinion, that determines the success of the team. So in the first 15-20 minutes, we are going to discuss that. The second point is, like, when we really want to give a negative feedback to someone, when we want to reprimand someone or criticize someone, we really need to be skillful, because otherwise we will dishearten the person and we will develop a rift between the two persons. So how to avoid that and how to give a proper negative feedback, that is the second important point which we are going to discuss. Appreciation and encouragement are 2 powerful tools to motivate the team members. Unfortunately, in medical curriculum, we are never trained, or we are not trained how to use them effectively. And in this webinar, we shall be discussing how to use both the tools of appreciation and encouraging our team members. Now, before we go to the webinar, let me give you some brief introduction of our faculty. We are really fortunate to have 3 experts from various parts of India. The first one is Dr. Ram Chadda, the spine surgeon practicing in a corporate hospital in Mumbai, and he is also a president-elect of Indian Orthopedic Association. Dr. Naresh Shetty, a recently retired head of the department and professor of orthopedics at Ramaiah Medical Center at Bangalore, and currently he is also the head of ethics committee of Indian Orthopedic Association. Then we have the third expert, a very young and dynamic leader, Dr. Parag Sancheti, the Dean, Professor and Chairman of Sancheti Institute of Orthopedics and Rehabilitation. He is President-elect of Asia Pacific Knee Society. So these people, they have a vast experience about the leadership, and they are going to give us some idea how to communicate so that we can have the best team. The brief outline about the session, this is not going to be any didactic lectures, but this will be in the form of interaction. So Dr. Ajit and I will be asking few relevant questions to our panelists, and then we are going to discuss about what they learned from their vast experience and that they are going to share with us. If you have any question, and I'm sure a lot of questions are going to come, so we will try to cover few questions. So please send your questions on WhatsApp on my WhatsApp number, that's 97129 25600. I repeat, 97129-25600 or 9844084604. That's Dr. Ajit Kumar WhatsApp number. So with that, we start the ball rolling. And I would like to ask the first question to Dr. Ram Chadda, and that's about the important point of how to tackle the difference of opinion. Dr. Ram, I'm sure that you have reached to this position, and at various committee level, committee discussion, there are going to be a lot of difference of opinion. So what are your tips to handle the difference of opinion so that the relations between the two parties is not spoiled? Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for this fantastic session that we are planning to have today. And I totally agree that if there is going to be more than one opinion about anything, there will be a difference in opinion between those two people. How do we handle it? First and foremost, we have to realize that medicine and orthopedics even more, is still an evolving science. It's an incomplete science. There is no absolutely correct answer. There is your answer, there is my answer, and there is a correct answer somewhere in between. This is the first thing that we need to understand. The second thing which we need to understand is that the word listen and silent are anagrams. They are words which have the same letters. And when we listen to somebody, we probably gain much more because we may probably get information that we don't have. When we speak, opine, we only share what we believe we know. Hence, I strongly believe that there should be a difference of opinion for us to evolve and grow, but we should accept that difference of opinion with a basic thought process that this is the way that science, treatment, healing will actually grow. How do I handle it? Well, I listen silently and I learn from everything that I hear from my patients, from my caregivers, and from my colleagues. That's how I look at it, sir.
Okay, so like what you said, it's really like a new thing for me that silent and listening, they are anagram. That's like, I never realized that. So that's the first thing. But my question is like, you listen well, you understand the other person's point of view, but then how do you go about, like after understanding the other person's point of view, what is the next step?
So first and foremost, we have to agree to disagree and respect the other opinion. That's the basic preface. If you respect the other opinion, then you can have another opinion which may differ, and the two together may move ahead in the right direction. So we should always be ready to look at the same thing from another direction. In this 2 years of COVID, we've all received these WhatsApps, and a lot of us received that number 6. And you had one person standing on one side of number 6 and the other person standing on the other side, one reading it as 6 and the other reading it as 9. So it's a perception. So we have to always respect that, sir.
Okay, so what you said is like we need to respect the other person, which is, I fully agree with that, because in any relation, the respect is a fundamental thing. And if there is no respect, then I'm sure that there is no good bonding between the two persons. Before I come back to you, let's ask Dr. Naresh Shetty. Dr. Naresh, what do you think about handling the difference of opinion? In your professional career, you must have come across variety of difference of opinion with your colleagues, with your like the seniors, with your bosses. How do you handle those difference of opinion?
Ram, hi from Canada, and to the rest of the people. Yeah, I talk today as not only as an orthopedic surgeon, but as an administrator who was almost taking care of 1,200 beds at one point of time. And so we're looking at a huge number of people, the doctors, the nurses, the rest of the paramedicals that were across. And I think at all times, though active listening, what I would add to Ramchandra's talk is the active listening word is very important. But I think I would rather have another opinion point is that we must separate people from problems. You know, these are two different entities by itself. You know, the moment you think this fellow comes, you think he is a person and the problem are together. I think we should first distinguish the two. Next is, I think we should focus on the problem, not in the position. He may be a great surgeon or he may be the lowest of the lot. And I think his position does not matter. What we should do is to actually focus on the problem that we have in front. And of course, we should have an objective criteria in how do we do all these things. Most important in all this, in the work-life balance that we're talking, is to ensure that we have a harmonious relationship in the way we do. This is not a perfect world, and it's never going to be perfect. And surgeons with big ego are very difficult to actually take them around. But yet, we have to do it. And I think we have done it sufficiently well in all these years. If you really want me to think, I would look at, we have each one have gone through many episodes. And I keep on looking at, and when I look at it, I usually say, let's correct the situation and make the situation so optimal that it's good for the rest of the world to take care of it. And it is incredible that the most difficult people to actually get back into the way we want them to think are the surgeons. Okay, I think all of us would agree to it, and unfortunately, we are not trained very well in this communication skill as much as possible, but we all come with big egos. And especially when you have this big surgeon with a big ego and a very busy practitioner, then you have it. And I can give examples of that if you want.
Okay, so like you said, a few important things, which I would like to repeat. The first thing is, like, we need to segregate that a problem is one thing, the person is another thing, and the position of that person is the third perspective of the difference of opinion. Let me again ask you a basic thing. Pardon me for being repetitive. You have listened the person very carefully. You have understood his perspective. After that, you have analyzed that on point A, B, C, both the party agrees. Point C, D, E, there is a difference of opinion. That is what you have realized after listening with time, with patiently. You have understood that much. So now, how do you go about to the next point? Like, once you realize that this is where the difference of opinion, both the parties are having egos, because you said that surgeons are the most, I must not say that notorious people with a lot of ego, but yes, we all have a ego, and higher we go, more successful we are, more is going to be the ego. So in that case, what is your next step? This is what you have realized after discussion.
Yes.
How you go about?
So I will tell you about what exactly I went through a particular issue, and I think most of us would have gone through these kinds of issue at all. We had one great surgeon, and whenever he was operating, he was rude to all his team members. Okay, whether it is his assistant, whether it is nurses, his postgraduates, everyone, he would hit them with the scalpel. He would do all kind of these things, and he was such a, I mean, I wouldn't say notorious, but I think he was very noisy in the operation theater. And it came to a stage when no one wanted to actually assist him, absolutely. But the fact remained that he was one of the most busiest surgeons across the world. And we had to actually suffer him for some time. But one day, when all the staff said, no, we can't work with him, we will have to find some other people. And that day, actually, I called him. And I sat with him one-to-one and asked him, is there any problem in the operation theater? And when he spoke to me, he looked like a God's own child that was there sitting in front of me, all nice, very straightforward. He said, no, you look at my outcomes, they are very good. I do my surgery well. I may be doing, I see talking to many assistants a little more. My voice is loud, but that's it. But I think I'm fine. You can check it out with anyone. Then I called the rest of the team. They told me that he was the devil's incarnate down in this earth. You know, everyone started saying that he was abused, he was do this and all that. And then, you did not know what to do with this thing, because you had two sides and two different group of people coming and telling the same thing. So what I did was, I said, okay, let's do one thing. When he does the surgery, someone take an audio of what he's talking about. Okay, I did that. And then they recorded the audio. And then after that, subsequently, I called him. And I said, listen, this is actually the audio of yours. I don't want to make this as an issue, but I think irrespective of whatever happens, a dysfunctional surgeon actually decreases efficiency and increases stress all across. And that's not what something we would want to do it across to it. And I told him that we better ensure that these things don't happen. And for the next couple of times, every time he was operating, I used to go there in his OT and just stand there to ensure that he comes online. And it was a difficult task. After that, all the nurses and all started taking advantage that when I'm not there also, they're saying, no, sir is going to come now. And so you better. So, but I guess so after that, he got a message and I have told him that probably your yearly increment that is expected out of you for doing such great work may be stopped by a team of members. So you better watch it, but it's always one-to-one. When one-to-one, such a great person, but I don't know, I think it's a characteristic of certain surgeons, I'm not too sure, but yes, I think we still have to make an effort. They are our own colleagues. We have to put our best step forward, but I think talking to them one-to-one and making them feel what they are doing is wrong is very important. And the audio really said everything which we wanted.
Okay, good. What you said is really good thing what you did. I am sure that there will be some difference of opinion amongst us also, the way you tackle the situation. But before we come to that point, let's ask Dr. Parag. Parag, you have a vast experience of various positions at various associations, even in your institute also. So I am sure that you must have come across the difference of opinion. One of the point which I have realized that the three experts are at the top position. And because of that, you have some power with you. And that power also helps you to overcome the difference sometimes, whether the other person is willing or not. But that's one thing which I realized that may not be applicable to our colleagues who are, or our audience who is listening to the webinar. But Dr. Parag, I would like to learn from your personal experience. Like, have you come across a difference of opinion with someone, and you would really like to tell us how you did that?
Sure, definitely. First of all, thank you so much, Dhiren sir and Dr. Ajit, for this invitation, and all the IOA executive committee. The moment you send me the email and then WhatsApp, I saw it's a very interesting topic. So I think more than what I'm going to tell, I think end of the session, I will be a big learner. So that's why I said, yes, I must attend this. So thank you for the invitation. So it's a very interesting topic. So before I tell you an example, we are always faced with a situation in the roles we are for a difference of opinion. I'm a professional in the hospital. I'm an administrator. I'm a family person and I'm a social person. So all these four areas, wherever you are, there can always be a difference of opinion. Now, as far as the talk is going on, a discussion is going on, that discussion, as long as it is healthy and there is no, raising of voice or no mudslinging or no criticism, then things are all right. It should be a good discussion, dialogue, and then usually there are no differences of opinion. But the problems come when the two parties, may it be administration, may it be professional, may it be social, or may it be family, when they really start a little bit of raising the voice, or more than that, the body language changes. Once you see those signals, I think then you have to suddenly be on guard. Till then, it's fine. Many a times in the conferences also we see people are asking questions, people are answering, and sometimes it gets out of control. And then that is the time, you have to, kind of understand that this is crossing the line. A discussion is getting converted into an argument. And sometimes it is a very thin line dividing that. So that is an important thing. That's a trigger you have to understand. Point number one. So point number two is what I have learned over a period of time with my own experience. When you see that these things are crossing the line, I've always believed in this, is that don't react, but respond. That is one philosophy I follow, and I'll give you an example in some time. That ultimately just listen, you let that person speak. It always depends on the circumstances of the situation. If it is a big crowd, or if every morning we have a clinical meeting, and then there are about residents sitting there, there are consultants there are fellows there, and then the person who's in chair has to take control. So I think that is, we have to see the situation, what is going on. So to give you an example, like 2 days before I was chairing a clinical meeting, we had a case, and that case was a fractured neck femur, a 53-year-old gentleman, and the person who wanted to operate that day wanted to fix it. And then we saw the CT scans in details. There was a lot of communication in the head. And then I felt, and the others also felt, that it might be a good idea to replace it. And then, that suggestion came across. But then that person who wanted to fix it said, no, this has to be fixed. 53 is so young. We can always save it, and this and that. And then, from my side, I was saying, no, I would replace it. So the things were getting beyond discussion into an argument. So I just let him speak and speak and speak. And then this is the time, what the trick I use is, I say that if this is my hip, if I was to get operated, then I will tell that I want it to be replaced, because of the following reasons. There is communication. There is a high chance of this going into AVN, or this may be going into non-union. Then you require a subsequent, a different procedure. You'll burn the bridges, and then you try and give them a solution. Even then, if the person is not agreeing, then my particular trick is, okay, let's think about it. Let the clinical meeting get over. Come to my office, we'll have a cup of coffee, and then we'll discuss. So, I move the gears from a big, kind of situation where there are residents, fellows, and things are getting a little, murkier, and, there is mudslinging. Then we move the discussion. I just put an end to it and say, okay, let's meet. Let's discuss once the meeting is over, or whatever the situation. Sometimes you're in a family, you say, okay, just sleep over it. We'll talk tomorrow. You're on a social, you're with friends, and sometimes something's happened. So just give it some time. There's no need to give a solution immediately. So once, this gentleman, I took him to my office. We ordered coffee, and I said, Dr. So-and-so, just take some time, take a deep breath, think what you're saying, think from the patient's perspective, be in his shoes, and then decide. Because the fact of the matter, then he confesses that he had not seen the CT scan, and he had not noticed the the combination which was there. He accepted that, and then we decided, okay, then we will replace it. But sometimes it becomes an ego. Most of the arguments are just to protect your ego, even though after some time you realize that no, what the other person is saying is right. But then just because you've said that, you don't have the courage to say, okay, I was wrong, and let me now move around. So then we went, and then I also just put a group message that no, we have discussed and things are okay. And there was then we avoided the whole confrontation. The patient got a replacement, and today he walked also. So I think that's the way I look at things, and these differences of opinions are a part of life. As Ram said in the beginning, they will always be there, and there is always, two answers. You have to find out what is good and what is not good. I would just like to end this part by saying, just take deep breaths. Don't respond immediately. Don't react immediately, but give it some time and then respond.
Okay, so like your point is very important, that avoid reacting to the answer or the point of other person. Wait, take a deep breath, and then respond. And that's also very important, that other person's ego is very important. And I think that's what the Dale Carnegie says, that the other person's ego is probably the very fragile thing. And if you really touch it or irritate it, then probably that person is going to behave very erratically. So very well, we take these suggestions, and that's very important practical tips. Dr. Naresh Shetty, I would like to ask you, like from your vast experience, what are the pitfalls or what are the things you would like to tell our audience which they should avoid doing when we are tackling the difference of opinion?
So like, I think we, first of all, we must realize, like all of us said, that we are dealing with a very intelligent and a very strong personality group. Okay. Each one has got its own ego. I mean, I don't know what is ego, but everyone says I don't have an ego, but everyone has. So we call it whatever it is. This 3-letter word has actually burnt a lot of bridges across. So anyway, that's how it is. But one of the things that we must look as, somehow down the line, we have never been trained. We do not have this emotional intelligence that is very, very important. There is no formal training actually given, nor anyone is championing the cause of communication to the future generation or the younger generation. Not anyone keeps on telling. And so we must remember that the skills that is of a surgeon needs to be respected, but the skill which is really required has to be very articulate, to be really going across to the patient and talking. The empathy part of it is the missing link that we need to look at. And for that, like what Ram said, active listening, calm and relaxed, don't react, only respond, as what Parag says, focus on the behavior, not on the personalities, whatever it is, and at all times empathy, but ensure no damages happen to the patient. So that I would think the pitfalls and some of the answers that I would want to put it across.
Dr. Ram, would you like to add anything to this, what he said? Or like I would put a question in a very different way. Suppose you have to tell your son who is going to be a surgeon and he's entering into the practice. And then you have to guide him that, son, please don't do these things when there is a difference of opinion. What will be your tips to him?
Sir, I am in total agreement with everything that has been enumerated by Dr. Naresh Shetty and Dr. Parag Sancheti. I mean, they have done a great job right now. All the points, react, respond, about listening, active listening, about having empathy, everything has been put beautifully. There's a small take I have, and I'm putting it down here. It may not be in the context, but I think it's important. So we all work in teams, and we are very similar in our level of activity as compared to airline pilots. And I'm bringing up this issue here. Sir, in the airline pilot terminology, there's something called as a PDI, or a Power Distance Index. This is something which is for communication between the pilot and the co-pilot. A power distance index can be small, or a power distance index can be large. What do I mean by this? The difference between the operating surgeon or the team leader and the rest of his team, the one in closest proximity to him is the co-pilot or the runner while playing cricket, or the co-surgeon who's standing across and assisting you. This has to be bare minimum to avoid air crashes. Similarly, as a leader and as a team leader, and I know that Dr. Shetty and Dr. Parag Sancheti lead much bigger, more intense teams than I do. The power distance index has to be small, which means that the person who is sitting across, howsoever younger, junior, and you brought up my son's issue, that's when this thought came to my mind, that that guy may be the next generation, but he should have the guts to say that, Dad, you are wrong, or Dad, hold on, there's another way of looking at it. We should encourage this power distance index to be reduced if we are looking at avoiding air crashes. Like, suppose there's a pilot and a co-pilot, and the co-pilot realizes that the pilot is going amiss. He should not waste 6 questions. That is what they say. They grade it from 1 to 6. In the very first question, he should be able to tell the pilot that stop, hold on, we got to do something else, rather than saying, do you think you may be doing something which is different? Is there another way that you can do it? These are polite ways of doing it. However, in a situation where we are looking at life and death, or we are looking at a situation which may turn into a disaster, the PDI should be low. So I think it's something which needs to be looked at from team leaders, and something which Parag said, I loved it, is that you change suppose things are getting personal, just stop the situation there, sleep over it, or move to another area where you can work and talk about it. I think these are lovely points that have come out. Thank you so much.
We had a wonderful discussion on this point, and I'm sure that this is one area where we can continue our discussion for like hours together, because this is one area where everyone is facing difficulties, and it's not like once in a while. This is very common, whether it's a practice, whether it is at home. Again, we come across a difference of opinion, and whatever we discuss is also applicable in our family life also. So with that, I hand over to Dr. Ajit Kumar to take the second point, and that is about giving a negative feedback or reprimand to the colleagues. Over to you, Ajit.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. I hope my audio is clear. I'm having some issues here. Anyway, so yes, I mean, when we are working in a team or in an institution or in a a company or whatever it is, on and off, we are evaluating the performance of our peers, of our maybe juniors, or even sometimes if you're in a situation, you may even have to evaluate your seniors. So, and it may be our job to provide the feedback so that the institution or the company performs better and reaches the targets and the goals that have been set to achieve in the first instance. So I'll start off with Dr. Ram Chadha again. So how do you handle this issue of giving a feedback, particularly the negative feedback to our colleagues or to our juniors?
Thank you, sir. I'm going to keep it short. There are only 2 points in a negative feedback. One, a negative feedback has to be done in a closed 1:1 environment. That's very, very important, because as rightly mentioned in the previous discussion, ego is important and we have to respect each other's ego. So one, it has to be done in a closed environment. And the second part, we have to dissociate the human being, the person, from the deed or the activity that is being reprimanded. Doing something wrong does not make a human being bad. And this is how the discussion has to begin. That the discussion is about the activity, the deed, the act, the event. It's got nothing to do with how good or how bad another human being is. So it has to be keeping the personality of the person out. So these are the only 2 points. We should do it in a situation which is 1:1 and in a closed environment, so that there is no third party. And second, we have to keep the person and the personality out, but only pick on that activity or the deed or the event that we are talking about. These are the 2 points.
Okay. I think the same question I'll frame to Dr. Parag, but I will probably put a small twist to it. Since you have a different set of hierarchy in your institution, how would you say do it to your colleague who may be a senior person or a very important part of your team, a very valuable member of your team? Let's say a trainee, a second instance of a trainee, and finally, maybe a paramedical staff or a class 4 employee that you have, who also is actually probably a very valuable individual.
Yeah, so that's a great point, and whatever Ram has said is absolutely right. If it is feedback which you have to be very sincerely, seriously reprimanding him, then it has to be done in a little private setup. But in general, what I would like to say is, if you're in a leadership position and if you have to take those decisions, then over a period of time, what I've seen, even if it is a class 3, class 4 employee, even if it is a senior more doctor, because today in Century Hospital we have doctors who are even senior to me, who are working kind of under me, and of course if it's resident. So one thing is common is that whenever you are giving them negative feedback, you have to again, and I've learned it the hard way, I used to be very harsh, I used to shout, but keep the tone same all across. Just because he's a class 3 doesn't give you the right to shout at him. I always feel that whoever it is, we should be able to put that person in the highest situation. How would you, give him a negative feedback? So that's what I would do. It's very easy to shout out your assistant in the OT or the mama maushi in the OT and tell them. But then that has to change. The tone has to change. The second important point is it depends on what is the type of feedback you're giving. If it is, certain things in the organization are non-negotiables, which then, at times, can lead to serious issues. So it depends on what kind of feedback. So if it is something which is pardonable and, that person is doing it for the first time, then you have to you tell him that this is what it is. This needs to be corrected. But if it happens the second or the third time, then you have to take action. You might give him a memo, or you might cut his salary. And if it is a very, very difficult thing, and if he has crossed all lines, then it comes to shouting or even something more. So it depends on what is the level of feedback you're giving, number one. And what I've always found useful is that you try and tell him that if I was you, I would do this. I always like to give my own example rather than saying what you're doing is wrong and don't do this, don't do that. But I tell him that if I was in your situation, this is what I would do. And then they like that kind of conversation when they see that the boss is also doing that, or a colleague is doing that, that is putting himself in my situation. And instead of telling him that, whatever you're doing is right, but you should do it this way. What you can do is replace but by and. So you tell that person, yeah, whatever you do is right. And do you think this can be another way of doing it? Because you've done this and you're not getting the result. And instead of saying but, replace that but with an and then give him the feedback. Then he also feels good. But then again, this is a critical situation. If that mistake or what feedback you want to give is to be given, but if what mistake he has done has caused some irreversible damage or might cause in the future, then you have to be giving it in a very serious way then. So these are my few opinions on the question you asked.
Sure. Thanks, Dr. Parag. I think that makes things pretty much clear. I mean, as to how we should be handling whosoever be it, So that's one thing. Dr. Naresh Shetty actually mentioned in his own way about the importance of discipline or otherwise by one of the senior colleagues. But by and large, how do you convey the importance of discipline, again, across the spectrum of your personnel that you interact with? Dr. Naresh.
I'm not clear, Ajit.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's okay. Better.
Can you hear me?
Ajit, just put your video off and ask the question. That will help.
Ajit, your audio is also off.
We need to discipline him now.
Okay, before he's back, I have received a question from UK, and that question is about negative feedback. The terminology negative feedback is appropriate, or it is better to call it critical appraisal? That's the question from audience. So, Dr. Parag, what do you think about that terminology? Which one is better, or which one is?
It's a good terminology. So appraisals are generally when, you're looking at some hike in the salary, or at the end of the month, you're sitting with him and your HR gives you some points and you're doing an appraisal, a critical appraisal. But, feedback is something which probably is an event-based thing rather than a time-based thing. But it's a good word, is critical appraisal. Okay, then, sometimes we have audits. We do HR department does audits of consultants, residents. So then that time we do the appraisals like end of the month or quarterly is what our frequency. So that time we can call it critical appraisal. But these words, whatever is good on the ear of the listener to whom you're giving the feedback and makes him a little comfortable, you can use that word. That's how I would answer this question.
Yeah, Dr. Ajit, please continue the question.
Dr. Ajit, you're not audible, sir. Please unmute yourself, sir.
Yeah. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
About that. I have two.
Dr. Ajit, you're not audible again.
Okay, let's continue here. Send me the question which you want to ask Dr. Naresh Reddy on chat. And so on behalf of him, I will ask you the question. This is very important. Like you gave the same example, like if you really want to give a disciplinary instructions to your team member, so how you do it? The best thing is like if I want my anesthetist to come on time, the first of all, I have to be on time. Without that, I cannot insist or I cannot request them to be on time. So how do you enforce the disciplinary action to your team member or to your colleagues?
So I think there are certain areas of discipline where I think we could be a little more flexible. We could be a little more pardonable, and we could listen to people, their reaction. But wherever it deals with patient's life, I think it is non-negotiable. I don't think that I would ever make that differentiation. Is it anything to do with patient's life or management? That is non-negotiable. By whoever it doesn't matter. And I like to give examples because it makes things a little more easier. I mean, a few years back, we had a transplant team finished a renal transplant, and they went home. Patient was in intensive care, and the nephrologist and the intensive care found that the patient was not putting up urine. And so they wanted to get the transplant surgeon on board to check what's the problem and all. And both the team members were not accessible or not available. And we waited for 2 hours and the patient was still not putting out any urine. So it was escalated to me. Then I said, you call the another team surgeons, let them come back to it. And they came. They opened up they did a laparotomy. Fortunately for them, they found there was a problem in the anastomosis. They connected it. Next day, the patient had enough more in urine and patient went home safely. Now, the question is, do we deal with it in a very flexible manner, or do we look at it in a little more serious manner? We all want to be very nice and goody-goody, but I think we need to have a code of conduct. And so what we have kept is that we have a team of senior doctors and professionals, and what we call them a committee, which actually is an advisory committee. We put in them. So I said, I passed on this particular episode to them and I said, you take a decision. And I sent a note to this team. I said, you will not operate till the inquiry is complete and I get a full information of what really happened and actually what happens. Now, it is not that I was trying to wash away my responsibilities. It was trying to get across to a committee of senior people who would look at the pros and the cons of each of these aspects, where probably I might have missed out, maybe whatever it is. But we need to ensure that the code of conduct that was part of our institutional requirement has been followed by this group, and if not, why? And so, even if it requires certain strict action to be taken, it need to be taken. And these people, what they was done for this committee, gave them a warning, which was informed to me that we have warned them. We want you to give them a written warning. Don't allow them to operate for 1 month. And it has to be going on to their personal file saying that this has happened. Don't put it as a charge sheet, but just keep it as a part of this thing. And it's clearing that they have not put up the written protocol. Now, I very well understand when Parag talks about non-negotiable. And I think here there is no place for us because it's a patient's life that was concerned, and you as a treating surgeons did not have any other choice but to ensure that the discipline is maintained for the organization, because tomorrow if you leave one, the rest of the people will also go every. So sometimes I think a committee is good enough which could take care of the burden which you do not want to take it as individuals. A group probably will discuss better, decide better, and probably will come with a solution which are far better than any individual. And this is what my take for this particular disciplinary parties would be.
Okay, so before we move on to the next point, Dr. Ram or Dr. Parag, would you like to add anything to this point, or shall we go to the next point?
Nothing much to add. I think it is important that once the mistake is made, that feedback has to be given. And one thing is that if suppose if you are giving a feedback in a particular way, it should be given uniformly to every member across the hospital. It's not that to some person you're giving it in a very nice way, to someone you're shouting, to someone you're giving a different way. So even if you are shouting, but then if it is seen in the organization that, okay, Dr. XYZ gives the feedback in a similar way to anybody, he wants to give it to, then the level of acceptance becomes more. So that is one more point I would just like to add.
So can I call it in a lighter sense that there should be a consistency in your reprimand also?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
You can't differential.
Yeah. Without a doubt, I agree totally with Parag that we need to be very consistent in the way we do our activities.
Yes, Dr. Ram.
Sir, I am just giving it a different way of looking at it, because we've used words like negotiable, not negotiable. And we've used words like negative feedback and critical appraisal. Critical appraisal can be given for negotiable, performance-related, competency-related activities. Critical appraisal is not to be given for non-negotiable, character-related, and trust-related activities. So when we're talking of performance versus trust, performance is where we can give a second chance, a third chance, a fourth chance. This is appraisal, correctable, and is to do with the deed or the activity. However, there are certain issues, and like I'm going now to what Dr. Shetty gave the example. One, that the vessel which was anastomosed gave way, competency related. Now coming to the fact that the team did not revert in adequate time, that is integrity, that is character related. Part 1, performance related, negotiable, correctable. Part 2, non-negotiable. to be reprimanded, course correction, and if necessary, action to be taken. That's the same thing. So performance improvement, yes, but character, you have to be a little bit more adherent and strict to where you want to be as far as trust is concerned. Patient's life, as well as in a workplace today, where interhuman relationships have to be respected. That's another aspect which we actually dread to talk about. But as leaders, I'm sure Dr. Shetty and Dr. Parag Sancheti would need to handle that. In our country, things like these are now getting more often. And where I sit today in a country like Canada right now, it's actually more important as to how you look at the other person and how you respect him, not just as a human being, but even his sexuality and other aspects. So that has to be looked at, sir.
Okay, thank you. You really made it very clear that how we analyze the situation. The competency is one part, and the character or the discipline, they are two different things, and we really need to identify them, and we need to tackle both of them very differently. Thank you. So now we move on to the next point, and that's appreciation. I always feel that we are very miser, and when it comes to giving appreciation, we really think that we have to spend money from our pocket, and that's why we don't give appreciation to other person. So I would like to ask a very simple question to Dr. Ram, because he explained the thing so well, that why we really need to give appreciation to someone. What are the advantages of appreciation?
Sir, appreciation is something which every human being is living for. So it's the very basic essence of our living. We live to be appreciated. And the appreciation needs to come from the heart, not from the mind and not from the hand. Giving money or giving a certificate is not just where it comes from. Money is hand and the head is the certificate. It has to come from the heart. I'm looking at it very simplistically, and I go back to a Hindi film and where that Jadoo Ka Jappi was made universal. So that Jadoo Ka Jappi is what has to be conveyed. It may not be physical in the COVID or post-COVID era, but that is the way that you have to touch the other human being, respect him, and convey to him that you loved or you liked what he did, and that you are happy that you did it for him, for the patient, for the organization, for the whole world or society in general. So that's where I come from, that it has to be appreciated. And where it differs from criticism is that appreciation should be unlimited. It should be open. It should be done in front of everybody. It should be acknowledged. It should be repeatedly done if something has been done well. And that will make this place a much happier place to live, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. And I really appreciate the point which you said, the Jadoo Ki Jappi. That's probably the one video which really made me to think about appreciation very seriously. Because in that Munnabai MBBS, that scene has really conveyed the value of appreciation. And I always use that video when I'm talking on appreciation at any level. That's a very powerful video which conveys everything. Dr. Parag, I would like to ask you, as you enter in your hospital, you come across the security person. And then as you go to your office, you must be coming across 20 people at least. So to whom you really appreciate? Everyone, like you said, that you really did good, did good, or like that you are very selective in appreciation.
So basically, just to answer your question in a broad sense, whenever you get a chance, you should appreciate anyone and everyone. But since if you're coming in the morning and there are so many people, you're already getting late for the clinical meeting, you just want to run, wear your apron, so you may not have the time. But then the question is, if a person has really done a certain deed, which is a good deed, or he has done something which requires a pat on his back, then that is the time it has to be done in spite of how much ever busy you are. And here, I think the sense and the timing is important. If some person like has done a good deed, if one patient has done a good, a ward boy has done a good thing for the patient and the patient writes it and he tells you during rounds, then it is better that you kind of compliment him, appreciate him there and then. Not that after 10 days, you tell him, then the whole fun is lost. So I think that timing is important, that it should be there and then. And whenever you get an opportunity, appreciate that person. And you can also appreciate your patient. That also helps. As soon as the patient comes in, you can talk. Oh, you're wearing a nice tie. Your dress is so good. You've traveled so much, all the way from Dhulia, and yet you're not looking tired. You're looking fresh, or something just to break the ice, and then you go to your professional thing. So appreciation there also helps. Apart from that, sometimes if you're expecting somebody to do something and that person has not done it, what the trick I use is I appreciate him without him actually having, requiring that appreciation, or actually I want him to do it. Then I say, हाँ यार, ये तो बहुत अच्छे से आज assist किया तुमने, आज वो artery forceps ऐसे दिया वैसे. So then they understand. So you kind of, you do that and use it as a trick instead of giving a negative feedback. You appreciate him and then he understands. So that way also, sometimes he helps, he knows what to do. So these are the various things, and appreciation, as rightly said by Ram, is the basic essence. We all need a pat on our back, and that stimulates us, motivates us, and that is what we should do. Sometimes you see, a person is a little down, a person is not feeling so upright, and one can make out. So you just go talk to him for a minute, you do not appreciate it, just give him that 1 minute and the mood can change. So I think that is the quality, and appreciation is all about communication. You need not be always appreciative and put so much things in front of you, but even if you communicate, you talk, and a smile on the face. I have seen that, I have learned the hard way. My father really taught me this, and he used to be all about smiles. And initially, part of my career has to be very serious type of a person. But hopefully I have changed, and I think my colleagues should tell me that more than anything. But even if you just smile and, when you're going across the corridor and you just smile at somebody, they feel so happy about it. I'm telling you, it's a huge quality given by God, and we underuse it, and it's absolutely free. So I think these are few things I would say about appreciation.
Yes, we missed that point in the discussion about the smile, because that's another important non-verbal communication thing, which again gives us some idea about the appreciation. As we are running late, I will go to Dr. Naresh Shetty. Like both Dr. Ram and Dr. Parag said that we should appreciate. We should appreciate frequently. So I would like to ask you, in a day, the routine day, how many times you really appreciate someone? How many times? 5, 6?
Now, actually, I'm smiling because Parag has said to smile, so I now smile. So that's number one. But I think whenever you're talking about appreciation, it has to be spontaneous, number one. Like Ram said, not from the brain, from the heart. It should come. But let me tell you one thing. I tried this trick once. You meet people and said, "Kaisa hai re? Theek hai," and everyone goes off. The next person, "Kaisa hai? Theek hai." One day I said, "Okay, kaisa hai re? Theek nahi hai yaar," bolke. Then he stopped. "Kya ho gaya re? Kya ho gaya?" So nowadays people are waiting for this something wrong to happen for you to talk. So I think the way things are happening is dramatic, but still, I think talking to anyone who's possible, giving them a smile, pat on the back. I mean, you can't pat the other gender at least, but to our gender, we could give them a pat and move across to it and do it more often. I think that's what it is. I mean, putting a pat on the back, or, I mean, holding hands or sometimes shaking hands. All these are part, and I think it's what you call it, Jadu Ka Jappi is very, very important. How do you do it is very important, and the more time you do it is still more important. And I mean, I don't think there has to be a limit to that. The more you do, I mean, it's good for yourself also, because it lifts your spirit up also. And I think more important than we also feel very encouraged to doing it. So like Parag said, na pehla smile nahi kar raha tha, abhi smile kar rahe. तो हमने कहा क्या सर आजकल पूरा smile ही कर रहे हैं बोल के दुनिया change हो जाती है. I mean, we look at things in a different perspective when we are happy, and I think it's very important, without a doubt.
Good. Parag, you really made a good suggestion. Everyone is smiling now. Good. Dr. Sethi, I would like to...
One thing, like what Ram said, it should be very personalized. If you are done, someone is good, you need to go to him, talk to him and say, hi, you've done a great job. That's how it is. It's not that you are trying to demean anyone, but to this person, he's done a job today. Tomorrow it could be another person. And maybe if it's possible, then like sometimes, you know, my boss used to do is to take us out for coffee, tea or lunch. And Shantaram Shetty was very good at it, you know. He doesn't say that you're good and all this. He used to take us out for this part of it. So there are some good things that keep on happening whenever you have this thing. And it's a team building activity, whether we like it or not. It's a team building activity which is very important. And these are small things. And when you say some good things about people, I mean, it's a very infective part of it. And I think that this infection is very good for all of us.
Dr. Ram, I would like to ask you a question because you are very good at, I would say, analyzing the thing. Thank you for that, because you are really good at it. So like when it comes to appreciation, what we should appreciate? Like Dr. Parag said that we should appreciate someone's appearance also, or someone tie also, or someone dress also. Similarly, we can appreciate someone appearance also, or some action also. So there are various ways or a variety of things which we can appreciate. So of the many options, what is your preference?
Sir, I prefer to appreciate an activity or a deed which I feel spontaneously deserves appreciation. I don't believe in being miserly in my words when I appreciate. And I look at appreciation actually as an investment. Now, why do I say that? So there is a neurosciences basis to it, sir. We have endorphins, we have dopamine, we have serotonin, and we have oxytocin. Now, all of us, the first thing that we got is when we were born, we cried, but that cry made our mother happy. Okay, and she had oxytocin coming out, and that's the way. Now, similarly, when we do something good for another human being, that human being goes and does more good to somebody else. It's a very simple way of looking at it. I mean, Dr. Naresh Shetty spoke about Dr. Shantaram Shetty, and I'm sure a lot of them know that. So we have all had our bosses who always did good to us. And what we do today is actually a long-term manifestation of the good they did to us that we are trying to do to others. So this is basically when you are appreciating somebody, that person will go and appreciate somebody else. And that is infective, the word which Dr. Naresh Shetty used. That is very, very important, sir. If Dr. Parag Sancheti has appreciated the janitor or the guy who's the guard outside his office or his hospital, that man will be more courteous to the next patient coming in. The next patient coming in may be unhappy, but would then go and be more courteous to the secretary, which will actually reflect on Dr. Parag seeing a happier patient who otherwise was walking in unhappily. So it's a very vicious cycle. So we should understand it's an investment when we appreciate somebody. It's actually coming back to us in the long run and will make the world a happier, more peaceful place to be. So I think it's very, very important, sir.
Good. So what you said is very true. Like it's really infective, and it really probably changed the chemicals in our brain. Coming back to the some difference of opinion with Dr. Ram and Dr. Parag. Dr. Ram said that the action or the deed should be appreciated. In the previous question, you said that you will appreciate the patient's appearance, their freshness. So what do you say? Do you agree with what Dr. Ram said, or you have some different take on that?
Question is to me, sir?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So, it is important to appreciate. That is what I feel. And this is what I was saying, that your tie is good or the appearance is good, is just like an icebreaker. Whenever we, the first thing is when the person comes, we should do that. But of course, if somebody has done a good activity or a good deed, then that has to be felicitated, I would say, more than appreciation. Felicitation is the next step of appreciation. So that is what is very important, because if that does go unnoticed, then that person's enthusiasm drops. So what we do have, and most of the hospitals have, are, they have annual functions where they, give gifts and prizes and recognitions. If there's somebody has done, they write the man of the week, the mousy of the week, the mama of the week. That person reads it, and not only he feels happy, the other person, next week my name should be there. So these kind of things also start. So doing these activities, and and if there is some way your HR department can do the appraisal here, and then okay, you did so many good deeds, so many things. That is why you will also get in addition to an appreciation and felicitation, a hike in your salary. I think these things are all important. In that way, it will definitely lift the morale. And once the organization is known for appreciation, that organization always goes up. We've seen, and I've seen some of the biggest companies where actually they come and appreciate even at a different level, a lower level, and those organizations are always successful. That's one of the key and basic quality of a organization to be successful, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you. So during the discussion, we came across various ways by which we can appreciate. The first is by words, which is usually immediate. The second comes declaring the Masi or the ward boy of the month. That's at monthly interval. Then comes at yearly interval, there is a function, and then you felicitate the person. And then another option is by increasing the salary. So that's a financial reward. So we will have a quick question to everyone. We will start with Dr. Naresh Sethi. What do you think of the four? Which one should be used when?
I think whenever you're appreciating, better to appreciate there and then, as soon as possible, spontaneously, because it will reach the heart. And if it is done among his peers, in a public forum, nothing like it, absolutely. It will give his ego a lot of boost, and I think the morale will really go sky high. Besides this, financial incentives and other things are a part of the job. But I think even if the boss is not able to go across, but sometimes gives a call and said, hey, you did a great job. And I think really I will remember this and talk about it in another forum. That itself is a moral boosting to anyone. And I think that's what you should do, is acknowledge it many times, acknowledge it immediately.
Okay, just I would like to, before I ask the same question to Dr. Parag, I received a comment from, again, our audience from UK. He says that, he or she says that appreciation boosts confidence and trust. So what Dr. Naresh Sethi said, exactly the same is the feedback from our viewer also. So thank you for that. And so Dr. Parag, coming to the same question, how do you use each one of the four?
So I think all have a place, and all have to be done at different times for different reasons. So there is nothing that, okay, I will not do a weekly thing, or I will not do an annual function, or something like that. But more than that, time to time. But the thing is, it has to be appreciated. If somebody has done a good job, if your doctor has done a good surgery, a complicated surgery, if his son or daughter has done well in the exams, or whatever the reason, don't leave a chance to appreciate, to pat the back. That will go a long way. And one more thing I do nowadays is send messages. So sometimes it may not be possible, but just sending one SMS, congratulations, yesterday you did a fantastic surgery. Yesterday you assisted so well, sister. Because of that, my knee replacement, which was so difficult, became easy. That one message, they preserve it and they really like it. So that is one more way. So it just depends whatever way, but the message is please appreciate, because I think that definitely brings out the better in the person and he will work more harder.
Yes, I fully agree with that. And I think that because of lack of time, Dr. Ram, I am not asking the same question to you, but we move on to the next point, and that is encouragement. And I will request Dr. Ajit to take over. Just to differentiate between the two, appreciation and encouragement, they have a very different motive. Appreciation is in response to something what the other person has done. And encouragement is like we are expecting that this person will do it better in the future. So for that, we have to encourage the person. So with that, I request Dr. Ajit to take over.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me now, sir?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so, sorry. Yeah, that's right. So encouragement is like probably an investment, like Dr. Dhiren is saying. So encouragement may also, again, could be stratified between youngsters, established team, and also the other members of the staff. So can I ask Dr. Naresh Shetty, what is the need, or what do you feel achievement, what do you feel you achieve by encouraging your team members?
I think the whole idea is to motivate a group of people to do better than what they are actually doing. And it helps them in excelling in whatever they're doing. I think all of us are looking at how do we actually bring the team higher than what they are doing, because all of us can go one strata up than what we are. I think the ultimate intention is to motivate people, ensure that they have the skill, they have the ability, so that they reach the level which it's possible for them. So the whole idea is that they will reach that level which they are expected to reach and which is possible for them to reach. And that's the idea. It's just motivating them and making them excel in whatever they are doing. Ajit, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me? My net connection is very unstable. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yeah, please.
So it is said that the British cycling team, the coach asked his team to improve by 1% every so often, and at the end of a decade they had a bag full of gold medals. So Dr. Parag, how do you think you go about in your motivation or encouragement of your team members?
Yeah, so I think both these things, appreciation, encouragement, are very important. So just to differentiate, what Dr. Dhiren sir said, I agree. Appreciation is when somebody has done something, you do it. Encouragement is something when you want someone to do something. So that is the essence. Both the things are in a way different. So I think encouragement is something which can move mountains. For example, during COVID, I remember we were completely started a COVID ward. The oxygen cylinders once, the oxygen pipelines were not there, and we had a vendor. And then I sat with him for 15 to 20 minutes. I told him that by tomorrow, how you can do it, and then you have to do it. You will save so many lives. So I encouraged him, and then that guy got the whole team with the whole PPE. He went inside, he put the pipes, and then something which even I thought would not be possible to do, he did it. So I think that's encouragement. You first encourage them, get them to that level where they can actually perform. And, you give them that adrenaline rush and tell them that it can be done. And at the same time, give them that hope that in case you're not able to do it, don't worry. It's not the end of the world. I'm there. I will save you. I will support you. And if it comes, then, I will represent your case. But don't worry. Go ahead and do it. So I think that is all about encouragement. So one should do that. Yes, Dhiren sir.
Yeah, Ajit, sorry to interrupt your flow, but
Yes.
I have received a wonderful comment and I cannot stop or cannot.
Sure. Please share, sir.
So that comment is encouragement is like a Viagra. It boosts your performance of the team and the individual. So that's a wonderful comment. And
Viagra does not encourage the team, yeah, only individual. I thought.
individual, but it boosts your performance. That's what the message is.
Okay.
Yeah, Ajit, please continue.
The blue pill.
Yeah.
Yes. So, Dr. Ramchanda, coming to you next about the same topic of encouragement. Is it possible, or do you, how do you identify whom to encourage and whom to just let go and they will do the job? How do you identify such people and how do you go about doing that?
So that's a very interesting question. I see that everybody is actually using a very limited percentage of their true potential. I strongly believe that each one of us has a large amount of locked potential that needs to be unlocked. And the word encourage, I look at it as two parts. One is courage and the other is the EN part of it. Now, courage is the ability of an individual to actually do the undone as yet. I mean, he or she has to have the guts to take that leap of faith. Encourage is where you tell that person that I have your back. I am with you. I shall be there. So that is encouragement. I mean, it's something which is very integral of any team. And probably the US Navy SEALs are the biggest organization in the world which keeps talking of encouraging each other and keep taking each other's back or having each other's back covered. So you have to do this. And again, as rightly mentioned by Parag, appreciation is retrospective. This is prospective. So you have to do it similarly, but there you are taking the responsibility. You spoke of the cycling team. You can look at the Polga sisters who are chess masters. You can look at King William. I mean, the film that you've seen where Serena and Venus Williams were encouraged to do what they did. And this is where it comes from the outside. But let me also go a step further. As a team leader, as each one of you are, and each one of us is a leader, we are unique in our own ways. We need to encourage ourselves to take that risk. And like Sergey Bubka broke his own world record multiple times, and he's known for it, we have to be a step better than what we were yesterday. And that's self-encouragement, which comes from self-belief. So when you have self-belief, you will actually percolate that to your team. And hence, I believe in encouraging everybody, sir. If I don't leave anybody out, everybody has to be encouraged. Even if you feel that this person is useless, hopeless, that's our incorrect perception. We have to encourage everybody. Sir, you don't know who can perform at what level, sir. I mean, it is something which we have to just encourage them. And I believe that each one of us has that latent or hidden talent within us which needs to be encouraged. So I encourage everybody. And I do it more with the visual rather than vocal or verbal.
Recording in progress.
I don't use much words, but I use more of getting people motivated and inspired to perform and go beyond what they think they are capable of. So I am very universal in encouragement, sir.
Actually, when I listen to Ram and when he talks about, when we talk about only encouraging others, I think I like the word self-encouragement and self-motivation. And I think I'll give you, recently I got a call from one girl who just graduated at her MBBS. And suddenly I remembered that I had treated her for CDH way back about 22 years back. And at the first 5 years was a tough time for me because the mother and the daughter, she went through the closed reduction, open reduction, osteotomy, so and so forth, and back. And I remember that journey. It was a very difficult journey, but I was very patient with them. I encouraged them to do things as we want. fortunately, before she joined MBBS, she said, I'm joining MBBS. Is it okay with you? I said, go ahead, you do it. No, she said, no, I want to do it just because I love the way you do it. And recently, when she graduated, she stood on the podium and she said that I am standing here because of a person who's treated me. And that itself is a big encouragement and motivation for all of us, because finally it is what the patient tells you, how it does it. It's not the money, that part of it. And these things actually creates a cascading effect. You try to say this example, someone else will look at it. And this creates a good way of motivating people, encouraging people, giving them examples, how these things actually changes our mindset and make us do better than what we are.
I think one quick point just to add, it just struck to me that another different way of encouraging is challenging. Challenging in a good way. कि ये आप कर ही नहीं सकते, tomorrow we want this oxygen pipes laid out. No, it's impossible. You cannot do it. Let's see. Say it in a little good way. If you challenge it, and I've seen, that really works wonders. And that is one other way of encouragement. Challenging.
Correct.
Yeah, Ajit.
Can you hear me, sir?
Yes.
Very well.
So I think what Dr. Parag said is absolutely true. There are n number of instances in our own profession where our senior professor have almost virtually insulted some of our colleagues, saying you're totally and utterly useless. You don't deserve to be in this field. And those are the guys at the end of, say, 20 years or so are amongst the top in the country or top in their specialty. So I think that's very, very true what you have said. Coming to how to encourage, I know Dr. Naresh just narrated an instance where unknowingly he inspired somebody to do it. But Dr. Naresh, knowingly, how do you actually encourage people? Inspiring is one thing, example is one thing probably, but knowingly, how would you encourage somebody?
I think finally at the end of the day, I think it's all about teamwork. You need to trust people. You need to inspire them. Besides appreciating, you need to challenge them, as what Parag was saying. And after doing all this thing, I think we should also be able to celebrate with them. And if it all this thing is done, nothing like it, I think you can't get it better than what we are all actually hoping and striving for.
Okay. So the same question to Dr. Ramchada, how do you visibly or intentionally encourage somebody?
Sir, I convince a person about his abilities. I try to believe that they should start believing in themselves. I use a very common sort of analogy, and I am sharing it with you. I convey it in more ways than one, that either a human being can be a thermometer or he can be a thermostat. A thermometer is one which shows the temperature and rises and falls with the temperature, while a thermostat is something that can change the temperature and make the environment comfortable. I convince every human being that he is a thermostat and not a thermometer. And this is to be conveyed to every human being, that he is capable of making that dent in the universe and making it a better place to live. That's all that I do, sir.
How about you, Dr. Parag? How do you encourage your colleagues and subordinates?
I think so. We've just spoken about it. It's all about, letting them know that you are capable of, what your potential is and making them aware of it. And I think just to give a safety net, I think that is important, that, okay, fine. I'm telling you to jump from the 10th floor, you close your eyes and jump it. But if something happens, I'm there down, my net is there and I'm going to save you. Nothing's going to happen. So instilling that confidence in them, is a way to encourage it. Boss, kuch bhi ho gaya to hum hai na saath mein, we will face it together. You go ahead. I think that is an important way of encouraging, being a part of his journey. And if need be, boss, you will bail him out. The other parts, I think covered adequately.
Yeah. So Ajit, Dr. Ajit, now like we are at the end of the webinar, can you help us to summarize all the important points which we discuss in this webinar?
Okay, so you want to add something to it before I summarize, or shall I go ahead and do that?
We can have only one question to either Parag or Dr. Ram about, like, can you give us an example where someone has encouraged you? Like Dr. Naresh Shetty said that one patient whom he has operated for the DDH, when that girl said that it's because of Dr. Naresh Shetty she is able to stand over here. In your life, can you give us an example where you have also faced a similar situation? See, what Dr. Naresh said is very right. Even at this level, if he is like feeling the importance of appreciation and how it can make a difference, I'm sure that everyone of us can have the same effect. So both appreciation and encouragement are equally important to all of us. But can you give some example of your practical life?
So I can give just two quick examples. One is the first time I did a knee replacement. I wasn't even expecting it. My father just came. He said, okay, this is a knife, you do it. And if there's something, I'm sitting in the coffee room, just call me. And then, I went ahead, I did the first knee replacement and then never looked back. So that is just, one example of how he encouraged me. And then, you just take the dive. And once you're in the water, you learn to swim. If not, that person is there to throw a tube at you. So that's one thing. And second, I'll just give this example of challenging. I remember, our 12th standard, I passed from 11th and went to 12th. And we used to play basketball in Loyola High School, of which I was a student. And we were playing and then we were just talking what you're going to do, what you're not going to do. And I said, yeah, I'm studying. I want to be a doctor. And one of my friends said, "Are pagal hai kya tu? तू डॉक्टर बनेगा, तू कंपाउंडर बनेगा तो भी बहुत है यार, तू देखा है क्या है तेरा मार्क्स?" So honestly, and that statement I still stayed and when I said abhi तेरे को बताएगा. That is the only year, 1 year I studied, sir, to be honest. 11th tak my marks should be 50% plus minus 5 or 10, and that time I got 90.33%. I got admission into BJ. So he encouraged me and I thank him every time I meet him. I literally touch his feet. Boss, तेरे लिए मेरे को बीजे में मिला, नहीं तो I probably would have been somewhere else. So that was encouragement to me.
Yeah. Before I come to Ram, there is very important comment by another audience that encouragement should not be with any ulterior motive. It should be like when we say you help someone, it's without expectations. The same thing is like you should not be expecting any benefit in return. Otherwise, that's not the encouragement. This is something else. So it's very true that it should not be done with any ulterior motive. It's basically for the good of the other person. We have to encourage that person. Yeah, Dr. Ram, about your personal experience.
My personal experience actually, which is changed me as a person and also changed me as far as my career is concerned, happened on the 2nd of January, 1995. And I am going to narrate this to you. A few people know of it, many don't. Sir, I moved from the city of Mumbai to the city of Chennai. And I moved from a public hospital, which is Sion Hospital, where I worked mainly as a trauma surgeon, pelvic surgeon. And I moved to MIOT Hospitals, Chennai. And I was actually taken in there as a pelvic acetabular trauma surgeon. And on the 2nd of January, it was a Monday, 1995, in the morning at 5:30, I was just shown images of a patient. It was the first day that I was working in this new institution. And I was shown the images of a mid-thoracic tuberculosis of the spine. And I was asked an opinion. And my opinion was that, yes, this patient, if incomplete neurology, rapidly worsening, could need a decompression, maybe a stabilization. I was asked, how would you do it? Because the why part of it was in agreement. And I said, I would do it transthoracic. I would go from the front and do it. That's how I was trained. And that's how I thought I should do it. And I was said, oh, is that so? Don't you do an anterolateral decompression or an ALD? I said, yes, I could do it, but in my hands, I think this is what I would do. So I was trying to show my core competence over what I was capable of doing. So I was told, okay, go ahead, by the chief of the institution, and said, go ahead, do the surgery, I shall join you. So at 6 o'clock, the patient was induced and I was started off with the surgery. It became 6:30, became 7, became 7:30, and the surgery was done. All of you who have probably done transthoracics in TB spines know that it does not take too long to execute the surgery. And suddenly at 7:45, when I was putting in the chest tube, I was told that once you are done, please come and meet me, by the chief of the institution. And I went there. And overnight, I was converted from a pelviacetabular surgeon into chief of division of spine surgery. Now, this was actually path-breaking in my career. Okay, so I actually evolved from a complex pelviacetabular trauma surgeon who did everything which was sort of very, very ghastly, to somebody who moved from an emergent to an elective surgeon and became a spine surgeon overnight. That encouragement, that faith that was put in me has actually changed my career. And I have been a very different person thereafter. So I am trying to tell you that it was the faith that the chief of the institution, Professor PVA Mohandas, who had in me at that time, and then cultivated and saw in me what I had, so that over the next 2 years that I worked with him almost, he encouraged and evolved that spine surgeon in me, has made me what I am today. So I am just trying to tell you that this is a reflection that somebody put their faith, encouraged me to become what I became. So I am most grateful that I was given the opportunity to unearth or sort of expose the potential or unlock the potential that I had. That's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Over to you, Ajit, for like summary of the session.
Okay, thank you, sir. So we've had a wonderful discussion with a very experienced and seasoned faculty here. And this was all about how to get along with the team and how to get the best out of the team. So coming to the question of feedback, Dr. Chadha said 2 important things. One is the feedback has to be done in a closed environment. And the second important message that he had was, you should always dissociate the person from the deed. Those are the words that he used. And what Dr. Parag Sancheti said was, irrespective of the cadre that you're giving the feedback to, you should treat the person empathetically. Okay, so it doesn't matter what the cadre is, what the level is. And he also gave an important tip that, sometimes the trick is to say, if I was you, I would do this. That was a way of his way of conveying negative feedback in a positive manner. I think so. And Dr. Naresh Shetty talked about a negative feedback if it's a non-negotiable sort of a instance or an issue, then there is no compromise. You have to, even if it's one of the most important members of your team, you have to convey to him that that particular action or activity is unacceptable, and it has to be dealt with, if not one-to-one basis, where sometimes personal prejudices can come. You can have a team, a committee that can look into it and give probably a more wider, open, or a non-biased decision. And there again, Dr. Ram Chadha, that is negotiable versus what is non-negotiable. Related issues could be are unacceptable and non-negotiable. So to differences of opinion, this was the first question really. Dr. Chadha said about the anagram of listen and silent there. Okay, so the key is that it is an evolving field. Everybody is learning, nothing is perfect. So the important thing is if there are differences of opinion, you say you agree to disagree, you respect the other person's opinion or perception, and then in a cool, considered manner, take your decision. He talked about active listening. So you separate the people from the problem, focus on the problem, not on that was what was shared. And Dr. said, you speak one-to-one. He gave the instance of audio recording a particular episode and then confronting the person and, one-to-one manner, how it was sorted out. So that was also another.
Okay, Ajit got disconnected.
What Dr. Parag said on this issue was sometimes it's probably best not to take an immediate. Can you hear me?
Recording in progress.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, please.
So, Parag said, some it's not a good idea to rush into taking a decision. Maybe discuss, sleep over it, and come back and sort it out. I think he has learned from our past Prime Minister, Sri P.V. Narasimha Rao, who said that sometimes not taking a decision is also a decision. Okay, so Dr. Ramchandra talked about PDI, that is to prevent catastrophes, keep the distance small between the two members or 2 or 3 people are important to. Okay. So coming to appreciation, basically, again, Dr. Ramchandra in his own way says that is the basic essence of every person's living, So it has to come from the heart and it has to be unlimited and given openly. Same thing Dr. Naresh also said, it has to be very timely. And even Dr. Parag also said, it has to be done very instantly and timely. And it could be in any way. The appreciation, even monetary sometimes. And encouragement, yeah, it is the motivation to excel. And what Dr. Ramesh said is, it is an investment. So it may come back in the future to help the institution. So, and Dr. Parag Sancheti said, it's a challenge sometimes to perform their best. So I think overall, we had a lot of inputs on this topic. And I now hand over to
Yeah, thank you, Ajit, and for encouraging everyone. We have with us Professor Ramesh Sen, the President of Indian Orthopedic Association. Thank you very much, sir, for coming to us, and your presence will really make us very encouraging. And I request to have your some feedback about the session and what we should have in future. Over to you, sir.
I'm quite happy. Thank you for getting up the ideas, which I thought while I was framing up the theme for the year also. And when looking at the quality of people, we have got to talk about soft skills. So, and as is a very standard perception we carry, that good surgical skills with a bad soft skill will end up in a bad. And a very good soft skills, even with a bad surgical skill, can still do wonders. So probably the kind of a environment we are in, I think these skills are very important, whether we are in a medicine line, whether we are in a general profession also. All these points which have been made today also, and as we had talked about the last time also, make a lot of difference in the life of ourselves, our family, our society, our hospitals and our patients. I think this is the best thing what we are getting right now. Thanks a lot for all these gentlemen to have given such a wise wisdom to all the people who are listening to. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you very much, faculty and our audience and AuthorTV team for making this possible. And with this, I say good night to everyone. Thank you once again.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks for the opportunity. Okay, Sen sir. Bye-bye. Dhiren sir.
Thank you. Good night. Thanks.
Bye.
Ram, Naresh. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Thank you.
AuthorTV team, you can now stop the recording. Yes.